All right. So one of the things that we have, see if I can get to there, is the elements of literature. So as we are closing out this week and you are working on your rough drafts, I want to make sure that you are getting this right. And what that means is going back over it very briefly in a very short way, if I can. So, what you are examining is not the story itself, but the pieces that make it a good story. So, you're looking for those literary elements, characters, point of view, parts of the plot, the setting, the theme, the figurative language, if there is any, the symbols that actually appear in the story, the imagery that appears, the rhythm and the rhyme, especially if it is poetic or if it is meant to be a poem. Those elements of literature are your focus. So, for example, if I took Little Red Riding Hood and I'm looking at the traditional story of Little Red Riding Hood, which is quite substantial, I'm going to look for certain things. There are symbols within the story of Little Red Riding Hood. So, some of the symbols include the granny's bonnet, the Red Riding Hood, the wolf itself. These might actually be symbols, not necessarily taken as characters. So the wolf is actually a symbol of a dangerous stranger. And then I'm going to go into great detail as to how it is portrayed in the story by using quotes from the story. And I'm going to talk about how I know that it is a symbol of the dangers of a stranger and how it ties to that theme of dangerous strangers and not talking to strangers as the main theme of the story. I'm going to look at outside sources. Three of my favorite outside sources are Cliff Notes, Spark Notes, and Shmoop.com. Now, the reason that these are three of my favorites is that they do literary analysis of stories, and that means they've already got some established examinations of certain symbols in the story. So if you're having a really hard time trying to figure out what it is that you're supposed to be writing about, you can go back, look at what they say are the symbols, and sometimes they're wrong. Sometimes your interpretation is going to be different, and I'd rather see your interpretation than their interpretation. But let's talk about that cloak, that red cloak that Little Red Riding Hood wears. Okay, so that symbol, what does it actually mean? Well, in these days, we might see that color is quite dangerous. Having a red cloak makes you noticeable, makes you a little bit more brassy. It makes you a little bit more willing to take risks or being in danger. Red for danger is a common memorable element. Okay, so I've got that element. All I'm going to do is talk about it. So I'm going to go to my sources on Spark Notes or on Shmoop, and I'm going to find where they talk about that particular symbol. And they might have other things to say, but if they talk about it in the same way that I've talked about it, I can use those sources to support what I'm arguing for my paper. I'm also going to refer to in the story the quotes that talk about how her grandmother made her that cloak, how she always wore it everywhere she went. And those are quotes that I'm going to put in to support how important this particular symbol is. So that's actually what I'm looking for from you. I don't want you to tell me the story. I want you to work under the assumption that everybody in the class has already read the story. Now, I know that everybody in the class has not already read the story, but that part doesn't matter. What matters is what you are saying about the story. That these are the three strongest symbols and they all support this particular theme, or that these are the figurative language that is being used that sets this particular mood, or that this setting is as important as the characters in setting the plot in motion. So I'm going to talk about those different elements of literature and connect them together to another element of literature. That's what I'm looking for in your papers. So you should see some comments. I've gone through your pre-writing, I've gone through your outlines, and I have left comments on your papers. These are the comments that you should be looking for to make sure that you're on the right track. I know you can do this. And this is our last major paper. Yes, we have one more major assignment, but it is not going to take that much of your time. That's why it's saved for the end. And we are coming up fast to the end. So that's it. That's my whole video. I hope that you are going to continue. If you have any questions, let me know. I am around. I'm going to be around all next week as well. Keep going. You're doing great. You're almost at the end.